Good morning. I thought I'd start out today with what I'm going to call Monday school. You know, we go to Sunday school, but hey, I think we're going to start a Monday school like today. I was told to go back and let me kind of recap what we talked about. And the first thing that popped up is the word trust. You know, when you share your life with people, that's a lot of trust. You don't want to talk about people in a sense that you share ideas and they're very personal. It's just like a marriage. You don't want to air your dirty laundry out in and let everybody know. Everybody starts formulating their own opinion and they haven't lived with that. So, when you are close like that, we talk about ourselves in a way that is very personal. And in my life, I have a lot of friends. And I feel like I know too much because I know everybody's business. Very few people know about mine, but when I do share my business and trust with people, it's a trust. So I feel very special about that. Um, when you have that kind of trust, like I say, because if you don't, the trust turns into rust. Right in the middle is us. When I talk about the us part, it's like, okay, a husband and a wife, it's about us. It ain't about me. It's not about you. It's like I say, it's a us. I can talk about y'all can talk about me, but that's not a us. When we can talk about each other like that, then it becomes a us. And if you don't have that trust, it turns into rust. And us is right in the middle of the S and the T and the T and the R. Because when you take the us out of it, it's you. All right, let's talk about prodigal son. And in my life, I've always been a prodigal son. Remember when I was a kid and we were talking about prodigy, what is it? Prodigies. Oh, today I know I was a child prodigy because what I was doing then, I was doing now. Well, how do you say it? I was doing things back in the day that, wow, when I try to do them today, it's like so past. It's no big deal. But the whole thing is, I knew a lot of prodigies, and I wish I knew I was a prodigy when I was a prodigy, because now it's like, oh man, I'm old. But I don't let that get down. I'm a new person now. Let's talk about, and I was going to get into the high school part, but man, there's so much I left out with the junior high school part. Now here's where it gets good, because at 11 years old, my mother died, and my father came in and told me that I had a check for 11.90. And after I got that money, okay, I got a salary every year because I was a survivor of whatever they call it, widows and orphans and all that. But now here I am, 11 years old. I got me a bank account. I got me a brand new suit from Frederick Lewis, and oh, I'm all that in a bag of crackers with some saltines in it. I also am a musician with a salary. Phillips Temple was giving me $50 every week in 1961. That's like paying musicians today $500 a week. And when I was at Phillips Temple, it was $400 a week. That's in California. You won't see that in Arizona. No. You don't even see houses for what we're getting. And these are gifts. That's going to lead me into all the, man, when I look back over my life, I can see God all up in my business because I was protected as a child of God. I was not protected as a child of somebody else because I had to suffer through that, and it was God's glory that kind of brought me through all that. Let's talk about all these miracles that I experienced personally by myself. Because in junior high school, you know my name is Garrick, so I'm named after the ball player. So quite naturally, I got into the little leagues. Or better yet, no, I missed the little leagues or the junior league, the pee wee league. I was in the junior league. My first team was the Trinity Baptist Angels. Believe that. Because now I'm a musician in Arizona with Trinity Missionary Baptist Church. So, I'll never forget those experiences because when I was playing baseball, you know, I was nearsighted. I wasn't very good. I would get a book and learn how to play baseball, you know, how to catch the ball, throw the ball, and all that, how to hit, how to pitch. But the funny part was, I was playing the outfield, and I had a problem when people hit the ball up in the air. I would see the ball in the air, and then I think I was going to catch it, and oh, the ball went over my head or something happened. But one of the stories I went on to go play with the Braves at Harvard Park. And we were losing the game, and their best pitcher was out there. Well, I couldn't do all that great, but somebody offered me, they say, man, you hit the ball, just get a hit. We'll buy you a taco. Oh, that's all I needed. Because, boy, when I did hit that ball, I hit a home run. Wow. Just the inspiration of if I could, and I did. So, that's to say, don't be discouraged because people tell you what you can't do. Because God can. They can't. Nobody can. But let that spirit get into you. You'll do some things that you won't even believe. I see that in other people now. So here I am. I got a bank account. I done hit a home run. Oh, I got me some brownie points for real. So, I finally, I guess I graduated junior high. And let me point out something. When we had elementary school, we had one teacher that taught us everything. And we went from kindergarten to the first grade. And each grade level had two levels. There was the B1 and then there was the A1, and I'm assuming that stood for the beginning and the advance. Because we had to go through these two stages of each grade. And when we got into junior high school, it was different. We had a homeroom teacher, and then for certain subjects, we had one teacher. I can vaguely remember a lot of them. And then here we go to high school. By the time I got to high school, oh, I was probably one of the most popular kids. And here's the funny part. Man, all my cousins had little girlfriends that liked them, and the only thing that liked me was a cold. That's all I was catching was cold. But that's okay, because now I gotta learn how to get with the gals. If I wanted to play baseball, just get a book. So here I am reading books. I mean, okay, I had a lot of variety. There was little books in how to date girls, and then even there was Playboy books. Oh boy, that was another experience because now I got to I have to experience a lot of physical things. You know how the Bible talks about the loins? And see, it was so funny when I was a kid because I said, Aunt Dorothy, how come these lions are running around? All these physical things, and I had so many questions. It was like, boy, go sit down, you just getting too much with that. And then I would get curious, ask somebody else, and finally at the end of the day, I would get the ironing cord treatment and get my behind tore up all the pieces. You know how it is when you're inquisitive and you ask people and you really want to know and they're not telling you anything. So I would go find out one way or the other. But now let's get to high school. Because high school proceeded when I started playing in bands. I started playing with people, and I started out musically with classical music. I wasn't playing no gospel, wasn't doing anything. But when I got into high school, my interest changed because the music that I was listening to, that's the music I wanted to play. I remember in junior high school, we was listening to a lot of Temptations and R&B, and that was the popular music. But as I got older, I listened to jazz, and I think the first tune I learned how to play was "Song from My Father" by Horace Silvers. And I tried to duplicate the same sounds until I was introduced to the improvisation of stuff. So now I'm playing with people and we're beginning to start bands. And that was an experience because I got a chance to play with other folks. And eventually, at Dorsey High School, they started a program where they started busing students to other schools. And we had a jazz band. Donald Simpson was in charge of it. And we had kids come from the other schools in the Southern League. There was Crenshaw and, there was Jordan. I can name a bunch of them. But what was great, I still remember all the piano players. There was a Herbert Baker, there was a Gail Voss, and there was a Larry Farrell and Michael Stanton. Oh, we were all at the top of the game. And I was at the head of the game. I was a little bit more advanced because most of the kids didn't have classical lessons. I started with Miss Blackwell at the church, and eventually I started learning music at USC. They had what was called the preparatory part. Even Joshua Heifetz was there. But my teachers were Andrew and Eugenia Clemens. I believe they were from Germany, and those people were at the top of the game. Eugenia could play better than him. But Andrew was the one that gave me the actual lessons, and eventually he noticed that I was very good at playing Bach. And he entered me in the Bach Festival way back in the day. And to pull it off was a miracle in itself, because now I'm not just playing the music, I'm feeling the music. I was feeling it so good when I first started. Miss Blackwell told me to play a song. And I was having reading problems back then, but I would memorize the song. I wouldn't know how to do the song, but if I heard it, I would just play it from scratch. And she was amazed. She thought I was actually reading that music until she found out. That's when they start slapping the hands. But there's another miracle, because who's giving you these miracles? I remember one time we was at recess in junior high school, and when the bell rang, we were losing the game, and I decided to go out there and win the game all by myself. I was tardy for class, so I got a swat or two and all that. But something told me to win the game, because my brother used to play baseball all by himself. Can you imagine him go out, announce his name, get up to the plate, pitch the ball, go run up and hit the ball and run around the bases, and he get all excited. Just playing by himself, announce the game, everything. He would even do the audience thing. Now batting number 24, Willie Mays. Yeah, boo, boo, yeah. He would do the whole thing. So that kind of taught me, hey, if you need to do something, do it yourself. Because now here I am in high school. I'm a roller. I know who to hang out with and who not to hang out with. But one little tragedy was about, I learned how to be everybody but myself. I can't say that today because now I insist on being myself. Eventually, I had the big head because I got all this money, I got all these friends, but I got to go back home and pretend I'm still little Gary. And after a while, boy, once upon a time, something happened. And it bothered me so bad, and my head is so big, I just put on my suit and walked out the door. And, ugh, if you ever did something just out of emotions or something, you'll learn that you can walk out and then you will. Basically, what happened, I went around the corner to my buddy's house and spent the night over there. But when I woke up and his parents found out I was there, oh, now I got to leave. And where do I go? I think I came back one more time, but now I'm caught up in the worldly stuff. And eventually I left and wandered off. And to make a long story short, I was taking drugs. And I'll never forget, I went to some little restaurant. And I might have started out with marijuana, but we were dropping pills back then. And when you drop pills and you got pills in your pocket and your pills in your system, and it was a lot of pills. Eventually the police came and I got arrested. Eventually I ended up in what was known as the California Youth Authority. That's run by the state. Because when you get picked up on the street as a juvenile, you go to juvenile hall. They had a little detention center called Georgia Street. And it's like a little bitty jail, but when you get into juvenile hall, oh, it's so much different. First of all, your parents, you're still under your parents, and your parents could pick you up. But when you get into the California Youth Authority, I was charged with possession for sale, and I got convicted. But eventually, I was a ward of the state, not the county, not the city. I was a ward of the state, and if I was older, I would have went to prison. So, when I got to be a ward of the state, I had to go through the registration process and all that. They sent me to Tracy, California, to what was known as the Dual Vocational Institute. Oh, you talk about frightening, because that's where the hardcore criminals that were adults intervened with the youth. I'll put it like that. That was hardcore, and I eventually was transferred to the youth training school, which was somewhere like in Chino, California, somewhere out there. And what was strange, and this is kind of reflective of the days now, YTS was considered a lightweight, nice little Disneyland jail. Later on in the years, they started putting gun towers in that place. But here's the thing. When I did get to YTS, as we called it, they had a music class. And that music class consisted of a bunch of kids who wanted to learn how to play instruments. So I went and joined, and boy, that was some of the worst music I ever heard in life. And when I came, oh, they loved me because we started getting stuff together. And there was a couple guys that knew what they were doing and were learning just like me. But what got the attention of the institution, I played, I don't know, maybe I did Flight of the Bumblebee. And when the teacher found that song and he heard it, he told his bosses. The bosses like the warden and the people who were running the education department. And when that happened, that changed my life, because now I got what was known as, I got juice. They came and started calling me out of my dorm, and we had C&D company, that's what they called it. I felt like I was in the army with no gun. But the thing was, they got me, and they got me to perform in front of the staff. Oh my goodness, I'm a celebrity now. The supervisor of education became, he kind of adopted me. He would take me out of the dorms just to play handball with him, and then we go eat with the staff. So you know I'm highly favored in staff. And we took that, we started developing a group, and then they started putting us on tour within the state system. Now here I am, I'm the big fish in the little pond. I'm feeling like one. Oh my goodness, can you imagine the feeling with all that? But it grew, and then you get out. Here's what I learned. You know, I was so comfortable in there, and when it was time for me to leave, I don't know where I was going to live, what I was going to do. And it was so easy to become institutionalized because now I want to go back instead of going back out in the world. And when that happens, you'll do weird stuff to keep going back and back and back and back. And understand this, when I was in there, I was at the top of the game. But when I go back on the streets, oh, I got to start over again, and I'm nothing. At least that's what I thought. Eventually, you have to learn how to develop yourself. And when you're a big fish in a little pond, there's no room for growth. Let me put it like that. Because I continued that process of being incarcerated and going through the system. It was so, what can I say? It was so routine that eventually I didn't want to stay in jail like that. There was two places I would go. I would go to church in the jail and become the piano player and get more juice. And then I started going to the library. Because once upon a time I was arrested, and I really, well, that was a different thing. I really didn't do it. I had to go to the library because there was people that were known as jailhouse lawyers. And they were quite adept at learning how to beat the system. And quite naturally, you know, I was fascinated with that. That's what I wanted to do. I learned the law and the PCs and the codes and the group and the conduct and the protocol and all that stuff. And then it becomes routine. Eventually, I went through the state system. I had to go through Chino and CRC, which was a rehabilitation center for drugs. And I tell you, if you don't want to do something, you'll do what you want to do, and that's sometimes not the right thing to do. But eventually I went through the system, and eventually I went through the federal system. How did I get into the federal system? Because I was robbing banks from my habit. Everything that was bad turned worse because I went from marijuana to heroin. And I'm not talking about snorting, and I had to shoot it and do it. And you get so wrapped up into these things, that is what you do, and that's it. You don't know how to do nothing. Eventually I grew out of it because that's where I knew I was highly favored as a child of God. I was not favored as a child of anything else going on because, you know, when you feel big, and I used to hang around what we called the big shots, you know. I was always fascinated with the pimps, the drug dealers, and I wasn't into the murder and mayhem and the rape and all that. Robbery was my thing, you know. Eventually I got into the drugs, but the best way I can put it, I was a child of God and protected from the things that make you feel uncomfortable, for so to speak. And my position was I was comfortable with everybody. Let me tell you about YTS and the racial situation. I've never seen so much hatred and racism in my life because between C and D there was a blind spot, and that's where people would attack you if they didn't like you. So I had to deal with the KKK, the Camellias, the white faction, and then you had the Mexican function. You know, it was always in three. It was so bad that four people of any race could not congregate at one time. If you're playing dominoes, a white guy or a Mexican had to be there. And when we had our days, there was a white day and a black day and all that. This was when they called each other African Americans and Mexican Americans, and you know, there was the Caucasians. But what I learned, the music kind of mended all of us together because I played with all the groups. I listened to all the music. And when it comes to music, all I got to do is listen to it, and I'm gone from there. So they would finally get to my release date, and I'd go back unprepared for the other part because I was taken care of. I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do nothing but show up. And eventually, I crashed. But when I got to the federal system, and by the way, I left in 1989, never went back to prison again. When I got to the federal system, and I was even, and it started at Terminal Island in California when I got convicted. They sent me to the FCI in Phoenix and eventually transferred me to the FCI in Tucson. And what an experience that was, because while I was there, they usually assign you a job, and my job was to run a computer for the Department of Education. And that was a very privileged position because I'm privy to how the system is run through the Bureau of Prison. And I think we was under the Department of Justice. But I had a very privileged position because I'm running the computer. And this is before they had modems and, well, they did have a modem until we started making charges to the General Accounting Office. And man, when they found out the criminals were running that place, oh, they shut it down. But I got a chance to learn how to use the computer. And I went through the system. I believe it was on DOS back then. There was no Windows. But eventually I learned how to do that. And I got into the music program. And when I did, it was so powerful that I even involved the staff. We had a big talent show, which involved the staff. Oh man, it was tremendous. But I left. But the other part, I used to fraternize with all the guys. And if you know, when you're on a federal level of criminality, you're not just dealing with the guy that robbed the liquor store. You're dealing with cartels and major stuff. And people liked me so much that they would favor me. Do you know they tried to get me in the Klan? Well, my name is Garrick, and they sent an application, and one day they was teasing me. Hey, Garrick, welcome to the Klan. What are you talking about? Made me think of Dave Chappelle when he played that character. But I was favored because my favorites was the Colombians. They was right next door. And how did I meet them? Well, I learned how to make pruno. And we had a spot, and it was right between us. And man, we had that spot. They treated me like royalty. I mean, they was offering me some gigs that if I took them, I'd be having a necktie party. And if you don't know what a necktie party is, they just grab you and take you and tie a necktie around you and hang you over the cliff. That's what they used to do. But eventually I graduated and was released, and I never went back to prison, per se, again. I got into Well, I guess let me pause for the cause right there and talk about the rest of my life. Okay?